Blog Talk Radio.
Alternative facts.
The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. At 12:07 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time, numerous unidentified objects of unknown intent and unknown origin were detected at high altitudes over multiple locations of Earth's outer space by the National Radio Astronomy Observatory, and these objects are presumed to be some form of controlled aircraft. It is not known if more of these aircraft will arrive, or if they will attempt entering Earth's atmosphere. United States citizens are encouraged to monitor local media outlets, as more updates will follow as information becomes available. The following message is transmitted at the request of the United States government. Attacks by the undead have been reported in several states across the country. The dead are rising from their graves and are attacking the human race. At this time, it is expected that more attacks of this nature will occur in several other states in the next few hours. The intent behind their attack is unknown at this time. He has been observed that a byte or exchange of fluids is a method of transmission. This is an extremely dangerous situation if they crave the taste of human flesh. It is not known whether this event will last for hours, days, or even longer. Stay calm, as authorities have been dispatched to deal with these creatures. An all-clear siren will be sounded when this situation is under control. Pacific Standard Time, nor is detected a long-range nuclear missile launcher. This missile is believed to be headed in the direction of all residents within a 400-mile radius of this area should seek a fallout shelter immediately.
Welcome to Within the Chaos with your host, Rodney, the Viking Shortridge. I want to give a big old shout out to the Facebook paranormal groups that allow us to post our shows on their pages and helping us to get the word out about all of our guests. If anyone would like to speak to Black Diamond Paranormal Society, BDPS, to discuss your paranormal questions or issues, go to our website at blackdiamondps.org or email blackdiamondps@yahoo.com. As always, our services are free.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. You can listen in by calling 516-387-1922, or you can go to the Vibe Radio Network website at blogtalkradio.com/Vibe Radio Network. For deep within the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, I'd like to welcome everyone and thank you for listening to Within the Chaos. My name is Rodney Shortridge, and I'll be your host tonight. First off, I'd like to give a shout out to my cousins up in Ohio, Jennifer and Joe Shortridge of 222 Paranormal. If you get a chance, check out their talk show. You can find them on Facebook under 222 Paranormal. Well, I hope everybody's still alive and kicking with this virus going around. I know in our area, let's see, last week we had 0. Now we have in our county 4. And it seems like it's kind of easing up in New York a little bit, but I don't know. It's pretty bad still yet. But enough of that for right now. Let's go ahead and get our special guest on. His name is Daniel Benoit. He's a founder and researcher of the East Coast Bigfoot Researchers Organization. And let me see, let me get him clicked over here. Hello, Daniel, and thank you for joining us tonight, man. It's an honor to have you on.
Well, hello, and thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh, well, anytime. I love to talk to people, especially anything about cryptids and Bigfoot and shit. I could talk to you all day and night over that.
Well, I don't know too much, but I'll tell you what I do know.
That sounds good, Ian. Well, starting off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and, and what started you on the path of, to seeking Bigfoot?
Well, sharing this bit of information seems to never get old, but, even though, at my age now, I look back at everything and, I was a young kid growing up in the woods, playing in the woods, and as I, the woods has always been a place for me to hang out, because it fascinated me, wildlife and then of course later on so much more became more fascinating. But, Bigfoot was something that, you didn't really think of, not many people always heard of it, growing up, but it was something I've heard of. It didn't dawn on me or click on me. It was nothing that really ever, it was like whatever, it was maybe like to me, in my mind, I guess it was probably just a TV show or a movie,
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until seeing the footage of the 1967 footage of Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, and watching that was pretty fascinating alone. And I tell you what, it was. I assume a lot of people are familiar with some of the documentaries that's been on TV, and like with the featuring the Patterson footage with graphic film analyst Bill Munns. Bill Munns was just one of the few that actually stepped foot and decided to take that film and dissect it and study it and analyze it. And other science has been involved to try to mimic the gait of the Patterson footage subject in there. And what's fascinated me and what really opened my mind and sparked the curiosity in me was that the fact that they found that they couldn't compare, for one thing. And the other thing is that everything they come down to points to a real, flesh and blood creature that they cannot debunk as being fake. And the gait does not match any known human gait. They put that, watching them put that to work and trying to debunk it, which they were not able to, really hit home for me. And I know a lot of people. I'm sure for a lot of people that the Patterson footage alone started their Bigfoot research, and them getting involved. But like I said, it wasn't just seeing the footage; it was watching the science behind it. The science is what fascinated me. Also knowing that there was foot casts found on site that were casts were made, and those casts and the structure of that foot was studied, and also declared to be from a real creature, not a fake or hoaxed track. Which hoax and tracks back then was known, mainly back in the 50s. But that's what started it for me, and ever since I've seen that and the science involved, that curiosity sparked pretty good. Well, I should say pretty big, and that curiosity grew into a passion. I wanted to learn more, and as I got out there in the woods, I was seeing a whole new world. My senses became really well opened up, and I was more aware of my surroundings. I was more observant, and it was quite fascinating to find the things that I was finding. And I'll tell you what, long before I ever had any encounter, I was actually a knower. Some of the evidence that I was finding when I was started off solo was enough to convince me that, to me, it's, you know, like a combination of that science with a film of Patty and what I was finding. You know, that told me, I said, this is real. This is real. You know, so ever since, that's what really got me going. And, you know, and over the years, it's never ceased to amaze me. It's never a dull moment, regardless if you find anything or you don't. You know, nature to me is a way of life. It's part of my life anyway. I love getting out there and getting, you know, boots on the ground, exploring, and just taking it all in. You know, I've had a lot of experience in observing various wildlife and watching them, you know, their movement, their behaviors, and studying their diets and observing their tracks and everything else that they leave behind. And it's quite the learning experience. So, but yeah, that's pretty much what got me going.
Well, how many years have you been researching or investigating the Bigfoot?
Well, Bigfoot alone, it's probably been technically around 11 years. You know, my group I started, I was still kind of solo when I first started it because no one knew of me. You know, so back in 2010, when I came up with the E.C.B.R.O, is pretty much, as far as, I like to say 2010, but, you know, it was a little bit before that I started. But as far as being on social media, it was about 2010 is when I first created the E.C.B.R.O. So yeah, it's only been, you know, roughly 10, 11 years. So, but, you know, as far as me being nature and wildlife, you know, that's been most of my life. So.
Well, you're based out of Virginia, right?
Yeah. Originally from the state of Massachusetts, but I was very young when I moved to Virginia. And so, yeah, Virginia's been pretty much where I grew up at overall. So, yeah, I've been down here about 30 years. So.
Well, what kind of reports do you get in Virginia, or do you, especially whether it be the eastern end or the western end of the state?
As far as reports, that's a good question because I've gathered a lot of different reports and I've investigated so many of them. A lot of the reports actually, well, here where I live, in the particular part of Virginia I live in what they call the Shenandoah Valley. And it is on the western part of the state, of course, west of the Blue Ridge. Yeah, a number of the reports come from along the parkway, the Shenandoah National Park, the National Forest, the George Washington National Forest, which is actually where I keep a lot of focus in. But a lot of the reports, they vary. I mean, I get reports from all over, but depending on what part of the state those reports come from, I actually share them and pass them along to other researchers that I associate with, and because they work certain areas too. But so yeah, I would say a lot of them are coming from the western parts of the state. Down south central part of Virginia, and there's actually been reports east of the Blue Ridge in various counties. So Virginia, a lot of people neglect Virginia as a squatchy area. There's squatches here, ladies and gentlemen. They are here. The people are seeing them all throughout the state, and so yeah, there's evidence out there.
Yeah, I live in southwest Virginia, and
nice.
And Tazewell County, and so I'm near the Jefferson National Forest. And years ago, when I was in my 20s, I ran into a Bigfoot and a little one, and I gotta say, if you've ever ran into one, your heart feels like it's trying to come out your throat.
I'll tell you what. What's the? You don't mind me? What was the location you said? What part of Virginia?
In Tazewell County, it's near the Jefferson National Forest.
Oh, okay, okay. Yeah, you're just Tazewell. Yeah, I do believe you're just a little southeast of where my good friend Tracy Arnold lives, and he covers a lot of ground down where he's at. But he's in Withville, Virginia. But
Yeah.
I tell you what, yeah, he knows very well about the Tazewell. There's been reports out of Tazewell, but he focuses around the Withville and a little bit west of him and the counties around him. And yeah, there's been a lot of sightings. He's got a lot of activity going on in his area. So it's yeah, he would be a great one to speak with in the future. So
Okay. Well,
yeah, I highly recommend him.
So talk to you about Bigfoot. I know right here where I live in a valley, and I got a mountain behind me, a mountain in front of me, and there for about 3 years straight during the springtime and the fall, I could hear, like you hear on these TV and these other recordings, that hooting and hollering, and then you hear the dogs and coyotes barking. And about 3 o'clock, it averaged around 2, 3, something like that. That would happen about every night, every other night for about a month. And every time I tried to take my recorder out to record it, it would stop. Now, I've talked to other Bigfoot researchers, and they told me, some of them said that, 1, they knew I was up. 2, they knew that I was coming out trying to do something. And 3, it was more than one out there. Now, with your research and what you've done, do you see things like that happen with people that have come in contact with them?
Well, first of all, as far as like them knowing, that's people's thoughts and theories. That's not been proven at all. First of all, yeah, what I do when I have a recorder, a digital audio recorder, they got a lot of record time. If you got fresh batteries in there, you can leave them out for almost a week. But yeah, I would just leave it out there, find a place, and because like I have an Olympus, they pick up pretty long range from my experience with them. Yeah, I would just leave it on record and let it leave outside. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff to go through, just to let it play and try to listen to where, because I timestamp mine. Like I look at the clock, I say, okay, it's 10 o'clock at night. Start record, and as you get through something, you say like 3 hours into it, that's what 1 o'clock in the morning you picking something up. So, but I've heard people say that with trail cameras. They know what that is. Well, who educated them on that? I mean, there's Sasquatch does not know technology. They might be aware of, they know our presence. They are aware of our presence, yes. If they are observing us putting something out there, well, they're going to know it's not normal for their environment or their area. So yeah, they might tend to stay away from that if they are observing that. Then again, in my experiences, Sasquatch is very curious. They may come up and check that out, especially if it's some kind of camera source. But yeah, as far as them knowing what you're doing, I really don't know overall. I really don't think they know, but then again, it may be suspicious to them, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I don't know if that best. Oh no, I was just going to say I don't know if that really answers your question or not. But
oh yeah. Are there any reports in our area, Native American reports of Bigfoot throughout the history of any nations around here close?
I do believe a lot of Native tribes, they have their stories and history. I personally have not heard any from any Native stories. I know it's documented that they are aware of Sasquatch. Many different tribes are. Many tribes have their legends. And I believe a lot of them tend not to really speak of it. From my understanding and the information I've gathered from a Native American friend of mine who lives down in Texas, Mr. Baltimore Galvan Jr. He's learned a lot of stories and history passed down from the elders over the years, and and again, Sasquatch, and something they don't really speak about. So it's very unlikely that you may get a report from them. I'm not saying it won't happen, but from what I gather, they keep it to themselves. But they are. I do believe they are aware of them. Maybe today, some of today's they may not. Some of them may not even completely believe with it, because from what I understand, a lot of Native American folklore is just folklore. It's just, for those who understand exactly what folklore is, there's just stories and legends that some may be true, some may be just stories. And Native Americans love their folklore, and sometimes it's part of their heritage, so they tend to stick with what was passed down to them. So if you look at a lot of today's Native Americans that are still, got a lot of Native American blood in them and study and practice their Native American heritage, again, some of them may be, full believers in it, or as the modern ones today, you may have like today's American kid, your average American teenager or young 20-year-old something, Bigfoot's a joke to a lot of people. So, I don't know if it's still believed or followed as a belief from the modern natives today. But as far as the older ones who take their story seriously, yeah, they may, like I said, I do believe they keep that in their back of their mind. But again, they don't speak of it. So if one did see one, maybe, I don't know. I don't know if they would share that information or not. So I wish I could answer that a little bit better, but I'm going by some of the information I've gathered from, Native friends of mine. So.
Well, have you personally seen or came in contact with a Bigfoot?
I personally have several different experiences throughout the years, but I've only had one visual encounter. And I wasn't alone. There was actually a total of 6 of us, and that happened just back in 2014. And actually, the gentleman I mentioned a while ago, Tracy Arnold, he was actually a part of that experience. And it was actually during one of our camping trips out there in the National Forest, the George Washington National Forest. And it all happened when we decided to step out on foot. We to go from our campsite and walk almost a mile down to the lake, and we were spread out around the lake. As we were paired up in twos, and there was nobody down there, just us. But while we were down there, like I said, we were spread apart around the lake and just listening. And a couple of us had parabolic mics, and then we had one couple that was with us. They decided to give off vocals, and we did end up getting a response back, which was pretty cool. Then while during that time, we were hearing movement up behind us on the ridge, and that could have been anything. So it wasn't. It was still interesting that we were hearing movement, but like I said, it could have been anything. It could have been deer or whatever else. But so actually, to cut in a little time to move ahead a little bit, after we were hanging out around the lake for a part of that evening, it was already after dark, and we decided, all right, let's regroup. We should start headed back to camp. So we had, like I said, almost a mile hike back to camp. And as we were walking out the lake road, which connects to the main forest road, it was all gravel, and we're walking along in a single file line. And, we're just walking. We're actually all talking amongst ourselves, everybody talking at normal tone. Nobody was trying to be quiet. And, on our way up, we were wearing our headlamps, so we could see where we were going. And, over off to our right, we noticed some eye shine, which was a deer. You could tell it was a deer by the way it was moving. And I know deer eye shine very well. I'm sure a lot of people do. But it was interesting that we had noticed a deer. It was actually very close off the side of the road. it was actually taking its time moving away. It wasn't running off. It didn't act like it was scared, which was kind of, I thought was a little odd, but it was cool that we saw a deer. And then as we passed that area where we saw the deer, we're walking up and something catches my attention off to the left on the opposite side. And I'm staring at it. And I didn't realize what I was staring at because I thought there was something reflecting, and until my eyes became focused and I noticed it was a set of eyes that blinked at me. And since it was kind of low, for the record, let me tell everybody, the eye shine was yellow, like a very bright yellowish looking shine, maybe a slight amber tint, but it was pretty yellow. And that may have been something to do with the reflection of our headlamps. But I'm staring at this and after I noticed it was a set of eyes and it was kind of low, I called, Tracy was the next one right behind me. And I said, Tracy, what is that? Of course, my response was, I said, is that a freaking mountain lion? Because it was low, and mountain lions tend to have yellowish eye shines too at night. And I didn't know what to think, but whatever it was kind of disappeared. And Tracy he called to the rest of the group. He said, guys, get up here. We got some kind of eye shine going on up here. So we all get up there into the spot where we saw the eye shine, and we got our headlamps. We're all shining in the woods there. And keep in mind, this is just after midnight. And even with our headlamps, it was still pretty dark. And we noticed that eye shine again. And the eye shine that we saw was probably 40, 50 feet back. And we didn't see the body. We don't know what it was. But you could see the eye shine swaying side to side pretty fast. And also, we also took notice that from the edge of the road that we were on, actually it sloped down several feet, then leveled back out. So we're definitely looking down at this. And so we're noticing this side of eye shine swaying side to side, kind of fairly fast for a little bit. And then maybe not even a minute or so later, just to the right of that, we noticed another set of eye shine, very identical to that one, except this eye shine was a lot taller. We estimated about 6 foot tall. And we're looking at this and like, okay, we got something swaying side to side. We got something just standing there, blinking its eyes on occasions. And we're not knowing what we're looking at. It's kind of got us puzzled, but this is kind of getting interesting. And probably a couple minutes of observing the two of them, this is where it got a little bit more interesting. To the right of the 6 foot one, there were some bushes. And, of course, keep in mind, there's a lot of trees in the area. But over to the right of the 6 foot one, down below in the bushes, there was something, what appeared to be down low. And then we noticed it was another set of eye shine. But that eye shine started growing taller and taller and taller, as if the subject was crouched down, kind of hiding or something. But when that subject got to full height, it was towering over top of the 6 foot one. And it got easily 2 feet. So here we are. We're looking at a 4 foot subject, a 6 foot subject, and then now an 8 foot subject. And the eye shine was very obvious. And as we're noticing all three, none of us are acting scared. No one's, we're actually acting goofy. And, in the back of my mind, I didn't say nothing, but I'm thinking, man, can these be Squatches? And I recall, if I'm not mistaken, Tracy Arnold, after observing this for a little bit, he said, guys, we got Squatches. And, like I said, nobody was acting scared. I think, we had one couple that was with us, Kimmy and Darren. I think Kimmy was starting to get a little nervous, and because she's starting to realize this too, I think. But yeah, but here we are. We're just seeing eye shine. We're not seeing no bodies, no shapes, nothing. But then all that changed here with the big one, because it did, as it was looking at us, it took a left turn and took a step or two and looked back and blinked its eyes. Now, when it made that maneuver, that's when a whole shape was made out pretty much from mid chest on up, because you can see broad shoulders and a big round head. And at that point, I was convinced, yeah, these are Squatches, but they're dark. They had to been a dark hair or fur, that was just blending in with the rest of the darkness. And I was surprised to see that much. I believe Tracy and one other had actually seen. I don't know if the rest of them noticed that or not, but it was pretty obvious when it made that maneuver, that shape was made out. And here we are. We're making noises, something to possibly trigger a response, but they were just standing there. And of course, we all had our headlamps on, and I believe the blink of the eyes, they may have been our headlamps. A couple of our lamps might have been pretty bright, so that would only make sense to me, is why they were blinking their eyes so much, But after this observation, they seemed to all turn off and disappear further into the darkness. And as they went away, we continued on back up to camp. And that was quite the experience, because at this point we're all talking about it, and then we get back to camp. We kind of get a little bit more excited. We're like taking our gear off, and then all of a sudden, me and Tracy realized something. Me and him were the only ones that had backpacks on, and in our backpacks, we both had night vision in our backpacks. And not once, yeah, you know where I'm getting at. Not once did we think about pulling them out to get a better look and description of these. But yeah, so yeah, we were kicking ourselves in the butt. We were caught up in that moment, because at first we didn't realize what we were looking at and observing until that shape was made out, when it turned and took a step and looked back at us on the big one. But yeah, we were up pretty late that night, because when we were having that observation, it was already after midnight. So I think finally, after the excitement settled down a little bit, after we had all gone to bed, we all went back to that very same spot the next day, and we did a height comparison. And I think we were pretty much spot on with our height comparisons. So yeah, what we estimated, because we had a couple people down there, a couple people standing up at the road, we got into the position where we were seeing them, and yeah, it was easily our 4 foot, 6 foot, and 8 foot was pretty accurate for our comparison. And so yeah, that was the visual experience or encounter that I've ever had. I could go on to tell you about a few other things that I've had happen to me out in the woods and stuff too, but really close responses to tree knocks, and I've had a large rock thrown at me at one point, and so yeah, there's a lot of different things. Vocals are very very well known out there, between the coyotes, the barn owls, and a lot of other mysterious sounds and the vocals that we hear out there. So throughout the area there in this part of the national forest, I've gotten reports. That's what's got my interest to stay out there and focus out there. I've heard of sightings, road sightings in the daytime out there. And over the years, not just from this particular part of the national forest, but I have come across a series of tracks. I come across a lot of tracks. I don't always cast them. It all depends if I have the material with me, or if I feel it's worth casting or not. I always try to take pictures and document to the best of my ability. But yeah, this area is definitely active, and I've observed not just Squatch tracks, but I've observed a lot of other wildlife. So it's been an adventure so far. Work in this area, and I do a lot of deep trekking out there. I get out there, I go deep, I climb some steep ridges. I like to go. I have the urge to where, you got your average hiker that'll hike trails and everything else. On occasion you'll get your regular backpacker that will hike anywhere. That's kind of how I am. But I try to think of when I'm out in the woods and I got the time to explore. My mentality is, where would a Sasquatch go? Because, you like to believe that they're pretty deep in the woods, staying away from, human contact. So, I like to believe, taking the chance to climb some of these steep ridges, hiking deep in the woods, looking for dens and possible cave structures. Because I personally believe that they do hide on the ground. If there's dens, deep enough dens and caves for them to enter, um, these kind of places I try to look for. So yeah, so I'm a pretty long range, I like to say long range or a deep hiker, if that makes any sense. But so yeah. But yeah, I always try to be prepared when I'm out there. It's easier to say you're prepared. You have the gear with you. Most of the time when I go out there, I carry a camcorder. I got my cell phone, because sometimes the cell phone's quicker to. I always think if I see something, I'll be able to snap the picture quick with my camera. My camera phone. But I don't claim to have any pictures of Sasquatch. Although people have pointed some weird things out in some of my videos. Maybe they are. It's just I don't go along with blurry, distorted images, because a lot of times people will take your videos and they'll zoom in on something to the point where it's not clear. And I know that there's people that go out there with their phones. See now, well, first of all, in my area, there's no phone reception. There is certain parts of the national forest where you do get phone reception, but not in this general area. And there's other Bigfoot researchers that go out there with their cameras and do Facebook Live videos out in the woods. And Facebook Live videos are constantly pixelating and distorting. And of course, then they'll go back and upload they'll go look through their video. So, yep, they'll put circles on there. So, you see that little smudge or that distorted image? Yeah, there's one right there. It was about 5 feet from us. I never knew it. Nah, these people are fooling themselves, and of course, the people that believe them are getting fooled too. But I'm very objective on that stuff, big time. But I'm objective with my own stuff. I always consider things possibilities. I never try to make anything as fact unless I could prove it or have something to back it up or support it. But yeah, that's just me. So,
what do you think about where there's so many hunters in the woods? Why haven't a hunter, maybe shot one or killed one, or if they haven't, brought it to the public?
Well, I've heard stories and rumors that hunters have them while hunting. Actually, I have a story from one, but some have actually claimed they're like, if you see something like that, some people feel like they're looking at another human, because of the bipedalism and the same similar features as ours. But then at the same time, some of the reports I've gathered are from hunters, but bear hunters, for example, who hunt bears, and of course their observations are, to me, are very, very credible. The claim to see what they say they saw and knew it was not a bear. But as far as hunters not shooting one, I do believe you're going to have somebody eventually that may do that. Actually, I've heard of a story. I think it was a B.F.R.O. story, and I don't know. I only know it as a story. But there was a individual down in Tazewell who supposedly shot one or shot at one, and but the officials came out there to investigate, and I guess of course they didn't believe it or anything either. But so I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I really think it depends on the individual, because I think if somebody's to see one, they just might be in total shock altogether. Because there's people out there.
I know the one I seen. I was hunting. I froze up. I know why. I think I know why people don't shoot them. Is because you're terrified, and
right.
you see. I mean, you see in their eyes. I mean, you see the like humanity in their eyes.
Right.
And in your head, you're like, yeah, I can't believe this is really happening. And if I shoot it, am I really going to kill it, or am I just going to piss it off?
Right. Exactly.
So the only thing I knew what to do, it seemed like I stood there forever. I took a step back. I finally got the nerve to step back. And when I did, it stepped back. When I stepped back again, it took another step and went over the hill where I couldn't see it. And I'm like, okay, I'm gone. I just pissed myself, and I'm gone.
But yeah, you'll never forget that moment, though, will you?
Oh, Lord, no. I have never been so scared as I was at that moment. And I had a rifle on my shoulder.
Well, I'm going to tell you what. There was one moment. Now, this is the one moment I have ever been scared. And although I'd never seen what I heard, but this was a year later from the encounter. This was in 2015. It was during the hunting season, and I was camping out there. This was just right around the corner from where we had our encounter. Well, I was there at camp. There was nobody else camping in the area whatsoever. And normally during the hunting seasons, there's other hunters that do come out and camp in the area because they usually take about a week or so off to spend out in the woods. But yeah, I was camping out there, and I was sitting at my camp. I had the fire going, and my shotgun. I was up against my I had it out, leaning up against my vehicle. And I decided to take my spotlight and walk out into the middle of the forest road out from camp. Excuse me. And then keep in mind, I didn't turn my spotlight on until I got to the middle of the forest road. Now, I started shining my spotlight. I started left to right. I started around the 10 o'clock position, and I was getting ready to scan to the right. But as soon as I started shining it, even though I didn't see the deer run off, you could hear the sound of a deer. Like I spooked a deer. It ran off. Mm-hmm. And now I continued panning my spotlight. And now as I got around just past the 1 o'clock position, what I heard next had my heart up in my throat. And I was like, you could feel it here. It was literally pounding because what I heard next was bipedal, large, heavy bipedal steps. I want to believe that was a squatch. It must have been a very heavy squatch because there was no denying what I heard was bipedal. Because apparently what I heard next, I must have spooked up. It probably didn't know I was there. Because like I said, when I walked out to the middle of the road, I walked out there in the darkness. I didn't have no lights on except my spotlight, which I didn't turn on until after I got out there. But what I heard was walking away from me. It was every step had a crunch and a thump. And even though I heard it walking away, I was pretty terrified because I was alone. And, if it came out after me, if it wanted to come out after me, I was probably pretty much a goner because my shotgun was over 20, 30 feet behind me, So, yeah, I was hearing this, every crunch and thump it took, because you could hear every limb snap, whatever was on the ground. And it was just, it had me kind of terrified. So I was walking backwards with my light shining at the woods, back to camp and trying to push a little alarm button on my keychain that was hanging off my belt loop. So, yeah, after I got back to camp, and kept my shotgun in my hands and made the fire bigger, I actually calmed down and I got to thinking about that. I said, you know what? I says, it didn't want to hurt me. It went away from me. It didn't want to be bothered. And, I got to thinking of 2014. I said, it was 3 of them versus 6 of us. But, you like to believe that they are all pure muscle. Mm-hmm. Sure, if they wanted to be aggressive and attack, they could have thrown something at us. They could have came after us, but they didn't, And here's another thing, too. And I put both situations together and think about the situation before we had the encounter in 2014. Prior to that, you remember I mentioned about the deer. There was a deer on the other side of the road, and before I heard what walked away from me, there was a deer I spooked up that ran off. I get to thinking about that too. I was like, it might have just been hunting, Yeah. And because it's like it makes sense. There was deer involved in each situation, So, and there's a lot of deer out in those woods because I walked into over where the encounter. I walked during the hunting season. I walked in there and I've literally walked up on deer just standing there, and they'll turn around and look at you, and I don't know. It's like it's weird. They get stunned by you being there, like you ain't supposed to be here. Because I just hike through there. You're not because in that particular area you're close down to the you're not far from the lake because there's I guess you can hunt in there, but hunters don't normally go into that part of the area. You know, but yeah, I was hiking in there during the hunting season. I mean, and there was two nice does standing there looking at me. I was like, we couldn't ask for a better shot, but I didn't. You know, so yeah, it's that's the way I look at it. So you know, I kind of collaborate the stories, you know, and look at the, you know, kind of put two and two together. I like to believe that's probably what they were doing, and we interrupted, you know, and so you know, looking back at it, make you know, jokingly thinking like the one Sasquatch, you know, which I'm calling it a Sasquatch because what else is going to be in those woods bipedal and that heavy, you know? So yeah, I was like, that Sasquatch was probably thinking, damn human got in the way again, you know? But you know, just a year or so ago, I actually heard rumors. Now, you know, hunters are shooting deer, and their kills being totally disappearing. I've heard a couple different stories I thought was interesting. You know, I always wondered, you know, what's the mystery behind that? Because, you know, hunter will shoot a deer, and they'll see it drop through their scope, and by the time they get up there into the area, the deer is totally gone. You know, in some cases, yeah, when you shoot a deer, sometimes they won't drop immediately, but you know, where they'll still run off and bleed out, whatever. But in a couple different situations, I've heard of that happening, and it makes you wonder, you know. So I don't know, it's kind of mysterious, if you ask me.
Squatch is like, hey, ain't chase that one down. Just pick it up and go.
Yeah, exactly. Free meal.
Free meal.
I don't think a coyote would drag it off that quick, you know, especially if it's of any decent size. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we do have mountain lions in the area. You know, people don't believe it, but they are there. I've seen one, a black one cross the road outside of the entrance one time. So that was very interesting. There's a lot of people report seeing them throughout the state. Well, down where you are, I wouldn't be surprised if you haven't seen one down there because down there they seem to be more common in the southwest parts of Virginia too. So,
well, I haven't seen one, but I've heard one. I've heard them a couple times. And,
wow.
Screaming and hollering, and I'm like, people be sitting there going, "What the hell is that?" I'll be like, "Just don't mess with it. It's a funny hill. It's away from us. It start getting closer, then we go in the house.
Right.
Don't make them mad because they will eat the ass."
Yeah, I've heard bobcat calls and stuff like that. I've gotten one on trail camera. I had the video setting on it, and I've had one walking along the creek bed one time. But man, I thought that was awesome as heck catching that. But I would have liked to have caught a mountain lion itself on the camera. But
oh yeah,
so yeah, that would have been great sight because you know I see a lot of people posting mountain lions and different various mountain lion pictures on Facebook, claiming that you know they're game camera photos, but claiming they're from Virginia. But come to find out, there are people finding there are actually other exotic areas where some of them from Asia or down, you know, or out west, and try to claim they're here from Virginia. You know, I was like, well, no, those are fake photos, but they are here, but those ain't from Virginia. So, yeah, I see a lot of hoaxing photos going on, even with mountain lions. I mean, as much as it happens with Bigfoot, a lot of people posting a lot of hoaxing videos with Bigfoot, and they do it with wildlife, which is a shame. It's they wonder why people don't believe or take it serious.
That's true. Well, in your opinion, how dangerous do you think a Bigfoot is? And is there any evidence or any stories that you know of anybody being attacked or killed by a Bigfoot?
As far as killed, no. Are they aggressive? I'll put it to you this way, and you know, and this goes for any wildlife. If you don't put it in that position, you know, you have nothing to worry about. I honestly believe they are completely curious. If they're observing you, you know, because again, I believe there's been a number of times where they do observe you, even though you may not see them. But yeah, it's like a black bear. Black bears are very shy and timid. You know, as many times in encounters I've had with black bears, they're usually going the opposite direction. They don't like to be bothered. However, different scenario when you approach a mama bear with her cubs. Yeah, she's gonna make sure she's gonna get your butt. you know. So yeah, it's you got to look at it in a wildlife perspective. You know, there's no animal that's aggressive unless you put them in that position to be aggressive. So I do believe they are very territorial at the same time because when we go into the woods, we're already in their home. Like the experience I've had of the rock throwing, I was with one other individual, and we were walking up this trail. As further you go up the trail, the narrower it gets because it's real thick, and the mountain laurel starts to cover up most of the trail. Well, at one point, this is I forget how long ago, but it was several years ago. But I had a cheap camera phone at the time. It was one of the cheap versions of smartphones, and it was probably the first smartphone I ever owned. And but something caught my attention over top of the brush off into the distance, going up a hill. I saw something that caught my attention, so I started filming it. And, with this cheap, low-quality camera phone, I zoomed in a little bit to try to get a better image. And I'm holding the phone up in the air, trying to, I'm trying to watch it. And whatever it was, you could see it was dark. It was kind of black looking. So you could see movement. You could see it kind of going up and down, but you couldn't really make out what it was. So at that point, I was like, oh, it's probably a bear playing over there. So, I ruled it off as being a bear. So we continued up the trail. And of course, when you get up so far on the trail, there's a creek right there. And the trail continues on the other side of the creek. So luckily, the water level was low enough where you could step on the stones and go across. And so as soon as we had crossed the crossed the creek, we had just started up about 5-10 feet. As soon as we got up over there, boom, right next to me, probably about 5 feet, you could hear the stone crash right there on the edge of the bank and in the creek. And me and the other individual, we looked at each other. I said, "You heard that, didn't you?" And we went over there. We looked over there and looking across the opposite of where we just came from, didn't see nothing at all whatsoever. But we saw the rock, and we're looking and looking and looking, and then somewhere in the background from where we came, we hear this faint whoop, just like that. And we look at each other. Yeah, we look at each other again, and like, all right, come on, let's keep going. So yeah, we continued up the trail because when you walk so far in there, it kind of comes to an opening, clearing. And I used to put trail cameras back there, but now we just went up there to look and check the area out. But we hung around there for a little while. Then we had to go back. So we went back out there, and we were very cautious and took our time, listening, looking. Didn't see or experience nothing else after we left out of there. But what I got to thinking too, this is me trying to put everything together. What I thought I ruled out as a bear may not have been a bear. It could have been a young juvenile Sasquatch. And there may have been others in the area. And the way I felt or took it as that was intimidation. That was like, get away from here, stay away from here, because apparently we were a little too close for comfort. But, how would we know? We were kind of just ignorant people, we didn't know, so yeah, that's what I took. I believe that was a form of intimidation. I do believe if they wanted to hurt us, they could have, but I don't believe them to be aggressive. Although I've heard stories from others and stuff, but I can't say that Sasquatch is aggressive completely. So, yeah, again, they are a curious subject, and but like any wildlife, respect it. Keep your distance, and don't put it in a position where it feels threatened. So, it's easy for us to feel threatened. It's easy for us to feel intimidated. It's easy for us to have that fear because here are these subjects, we don't understand them. Although we could assume and make fake facts about them all we want, which 90% of the Bigfoot community does that anyway. There's all these know-it-alls and experts out there, and they'll tell you, oh, you don't want to do tree knocks. You're inviting them to come after you. Oh, shut the hell up. That's, I mean, there's a lot I could go on. That's how I feel most of the time towards everybody's claims and whatever they want to claim, say. The thing is, people you don't know. There's assumptions and theories. There's nothing wrong with making theories up. I have my theories. I have my beliefs. And I'll share why I believe certain things and what I have that will support that. But people make up stuff because they want to feel like they know everything they can about it. They want to feel like they're the top dog. Nobody's the top dog in this subject. We're all, we're learning as we go, and we learn. Sometimes like you had your experience. There are things about that I'm sure you picked up on and learned about it one way or another. Even with my experiences, there are things that we learn or think we learned about it. So, yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, just be careful, but be observant. And I know one thing. It's easier said than done to be. Don't be scared when you're out there in the woods. Enjoy yourself when you're out there, but respect nature, and nature will respect you. It's a two-way street.
Well, see, I do paranormal investigations. I've been doing that for about 12 years. And we were at a cemetery, and me and a good friend of mine, we were sitting on like a little hump, a little bit of mound. It was about 1:30, and we were talking. And he was probably a good, 3 foot, 4 foot from me. And it was dark, and we were talking. And all of a sudden, bam, it sounded like somebody had threw a rock. And, I automatically turned my flashlight on, and you could see this little rock rolling down that little knoll we were sitting on. Dave looked at me and said, did somebody just throw a damn rock at us? So I got on the radio, and I'm like, did somebody just throw a rock at us? And, everybody else was at the tent. And they're like, no, ain't nobody out there, it's just you two. And Dave's like, what the hell? So, we turned the light off, and I just, okay, it happened. Well, about 5-10 minutes later, all of a sudden, bam, a bigger rock hit. I turned the flashlight on the road. Dave, by the time I popped the flashlight up to ask him a question, that summit was gone. He had took off right through the middle of that cemetery, boy. He was gone.
He left you hanging, didn't he?
No, he didn't hit me. He was just gone. It scared the shit out of us.
Every man for himself.
Yeah, I was there, and I started asking the question. I'm like, hello? Is there somebody there? And I'm looking around the hill and everything. Didn't see anything. Didn't hear anything. So I walked back, quickly. I didn't run, but I did walk quick because I was afraid I was going to get binged in the head. And we couldn't explain that. Could that possibly been maybe a Bigfoot or a squash or something just tossing rocks at us? Or is there another animal I don't know of that throws rocks?
Well, if I'm not mistaken, that's not the first time I've heard of Bigfoot activity around a cemetery.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I've actually heard other people share stories of Bigfoots coming around cemeteries, passing through or whatever. I don't know what it is. Of course, perhaps the only thing I could think of is because a Bigfoot to me is curious, and people do go to cemeteries, and they see all these stones, these headstones. What Bigfoot's probably like, I don't know. They probably wonder what these are, and they see people there. So it just might be something that draws in their curiosity. I don't know, or there's something else that's attracting them there. I've heard stories where because in a lot of cemeteries, especially if it's woods around there, yeah, I've walked through cemeteries out of curiosity to look for stuff because I can't remember where I was, But there was one area where I came across a cemetery on one time I was hiking, and I was curious. I walked through it, because it was surrounded by woods, and I see deer tracks and stuff like that around, because the deer pass through there. I've heard people saying that they've seen deer bedded down on right in front of a headstone. It's weird. So that's another thing. A lot of, depending on the cemetery itself, like I said, is there a lot of deer that pass through there? That could be an open area. It could be an ambush area for a Squatch to go after a deer. I don't know. Those are just different thoughts and possibilities I think of. But then again, like I asked earlier, maybe there is something that draws them to those areas, but that's part of the side of things that we really don't understand, but so it could be a number of things.
Wow.
So,
well, I know I'm serious though, but my buddy, he was gone. I mean, if I was going to die, I would have been dead. If something was going to kill me,
right?
He would have been in the next state over, and he'd be like, I don't know nothing. I didn't hear nothing. I didn't see nothing.
Oh my.
Well, has anybody got any type of DNA evidence or type of hair or scat or something that might help? Or have you got any type of evidence like that on your investigations?
I have collected hair, but the hairs I got collected were actually bear hair. Because that's one thing I find very important is to document and collect a lot of different things when it comes to wildlife. It's very important to understand those things because, of course, that's where the many interpretations or misidentifications come in. Because there's people out there that will find bear hair and say this is Squatch hair. I've collected same samples of hair from. I'm not going to mention no names, but I've collected the same samples of hair from that another individual did. Of course, mine, they did look a little different because, but they both been sent off for samples at two different locations. He claims to have sent his off to the Wildlife Center here in Virginia. The Wildlife Center came back and told him, hey, it came back as unknown primate. Okay, well, mine came back as black bear hair. Mine were sent off to many years ago. This happened through Dr. Jeff Meldrum, anthropologist, who was actually during a certain time was collecting hair samples. So yeah, mine was black bear hair, and the Wildlife Center, which actually, if you do your research and look, they don't do DNA samples. So this other guy was telling a whack story, trying to make himself look good. Also, with his claim that he came back with, it was an unknown primate. Well, there's his contradiction on what Bigfoot is because he says Bigfoot's not a primate. But, hey, his hair came back an unknown primate. So is there a gorilla or chimpanzee running in the woods? So, like I said, I'm not going to mention his name, but he contradicts himself and, but people are not smart enough to pick up on that. That's why, he's got a whack, crazy following. But, yeah.
Does he have a TV show, too?
Oh, no. I can get into detail. I can tell you guys offline. If you guys want entertainment, I'll tell you who to go watch and listen to. You'll get some entertainment. But no, as far as hairs go, I personally don't have no kind of DNA samples when it comes to the alleged Bigfoot, but there is other things I need to start following through with that I've learned. There's a protocol involved, and I've learned this through one of the professors out of North Carolina University, and who was involved in a project with other primatologists and the late Dr. John Bindernagel. Where they were working on a project on protocols on how to properly collect evidence. Best, it's kind of hard to explain, but I'll try my best here. But it's a protocol in order to collect evidence professionally and also in a manner to where science, mainstream science, that who normally denies it or dismisses it, it's a special protocol that may have them lean in towards the consideration of at least testing it or giving the thought of the existence a more serious consideration instead of completely dismissing it altogether. For example, I'll give you one little example, and this is a very simple example. You come across a trackway, you come across some tracks in the woods, and no doubt these got to be Bigfoot. If you believe they're Bigfoot and they look, like they're the real deal, take samples of the track itself, soil samples. And if you take soil samples, you also have to take a comparison soil sample, which is a sample from inside the track and a sample outside of the track. And there's chemistry labs that are willing to test these and to do their, see what they come up with. But that's just one little minor example. There's other things you can get into too. But yeah, mainstream science is very objective on these, on alleged Bigfoot evidence. Because, mainstream science doesn't believe anything like Bigfoot exists. However, there is some scientists that are leaning into the belief or consideration of it. So for those who think Bigfoot will never be proven, yeah, there's hope out there.
That's good.
So, yeah. But yeah, like I said, I don't have no DNA evidence. And talk about DNA evidence, I'll make this brief statement. There's individuals out there in the Bigfoot community that claim to have different samples. They're making a claim that they belong to Bigfoot, and because they put it through some tests and it came back, and they're calling it Bigfoot. But here's the kicker: they don't have a body, they don't have nothing to compare those samples to. So what's classifying them as Bigfoot? That's another thing too. I won't really get into that there because that's something that's kind of upsetting and disturbing. Because people will defend that, and people already have defended that situation. And but yeah, but the thing is, we can't compare samples unless we can't claim samples as Bigfoot unless those samples were compared to a collected specimen. Such as a body. As much as I hate to say it, you need a body. Especially if it's something that's not in our database. You need, like, if Bigfoot's considered an unknown, you need to have that body laying on the table. As much as people don't want to hear that, that's the truth. You got to have that body, and then, we got all these other samples. We don't know what they are. We're testing them, but they're coming back as unknown. Oh, we got a body. Let's start matching that DNA with this DNA. Oh, we got a match. So, that's the kind of a dumbed down way to put it for people, but, people don't understand that. So, and I'm not an expert. I'm not a know-it-all, but when it comes out, it's part of common sense, But, so.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
well, what's your thoughts or your opinion about the supposed Mount St. Helens Bigfoot cover-up?
You talking about the fire?
Where the volcano blew up back in the 80s, and apparently there's a bunch of Bigfoots that the military had got off the mountain, and what they done with them, don't know.
Okay, yeah, there was I don't really know much to really say that. I know now that you brought that up, it does ring a bell because we have discussed that on an open podcast discussion a long time ago, where there were supposedly bodies that were flown out there from helicopters, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because the eruption caused some. Yeah, there was some fire involved in the forest as well. But that's a really good question. I really don't know what to say about that one. I mean, there's a very good possibility that there were bodies recovered, and of course, the government probably had, whoever experienced or had sighted on those probably were told to be hush hush, because our government's full of secrecy.
Yeah.
You know. So plus here's the other thing too, because if the government does know, which a lot of us do believe they are aware, which I'm sure there's a certain part of the government that probably does know, because overall the government probably doesn't really care something about Bigfoot anyway. But the overall thing is, if they do know, they're not going to come out and classify as, hey, we have Bigfoot does exist. We know, we've seen them. So if the American people hear it from the government that Bigfoot exists, then they're going to know. Then they're going to believe. But why would Bigfoot be known publicly? Because that's why a lot of people laugh at us, because and make mockery of the subject. Well, the main thing is, if Bigfoot was to become publicly known and people start panicking, they would start getting fear, and they're not going to want to go into the woods or go camping, and because a lot of people spend a lot of money to go camping and they go out in the woods and spend time in these national parks and everything. So if people get fear, they're going to stop all that, and that's going to start hurting the local state governments and everything else. So just like back in 1981, over in Washington, Oregon State, whatever, I think it was Washington, where the spotted owl was discovered. Here's this little tiny spotted owl. It was probably no more than 8 to 10 inches or so tall, and this little spotted owl was discovered. And when it was discovered, it was immediately declared an endangered species. And what happened was the whole logging industry shut down. So you can't, they basically, in other words, like, hey, we have an endangered species here. We're taking away from its home. We could end up killing if there's any more around, So that's basically what happened. So now I use illustration also in comparison to, if we have this bipedal hairy, being that's roaming North America, where a lot of people already consider it as a type of human. Well, if Bigfoot became an endangered species, and the acknowledgement of where it roams and how populated it just might be, that's going to put a real damper on a lot of things. We still have logging in all. We have a lot of logging that goes on right here in Virginia, different western parts of the mountain. And, because I've delivered the job sites out and where they do a lot of logging. So, I think it'll shut down a lot on top of that, so there goes the economy. I mean, it's bad enough we have COVID-19, all that BS affecting our economy now, because it's, that's a whole different subject. But, so there's a lot to really look at and consider on if the subject of Bigfoot became publicly known, and the effects and that it would have on the economy and the public people alone. So
right.
But yeah. So
well,
yeah.
Do you think that that Bigfoot bury their dead?
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up. I've actually been in a discussion and I shared my theories on this, and I honestly believe they do. A lot of different species. I shouldn't say a lot, but there's been quite a few species that have been known to do this with their own. But now, I personally, I'll bring this up. I compare Bigfoot to our known non-human primates, such as gorillas, chimpanzees, bonobos, blah blah blah. So, I do a lot of comparisons with behaviors and their habits. It's not a common thing, but it's been practiced that some of our known primates has been known to do this. Most of the time, our known human primates, like chimpanzees, if they lose if they lose a member of their family, even if it's a young juvenile to an adult, a lot of times they're going to take that dead one, they're going to mourn it by dragging it along everywhere they go until they finally dispose of it. However, it has been observed where they have been known to bury by placing limbs and branches and other debris over top of the body. I personally believe Bigfoot is very identical to that in that manner. also, considering if they are living in caves and dens, they may, if they die, they may be dying off in somewhere where they're not exposed to the elements as well. So there's a lot of places that we may not know about. If that body does become, over a period of time when the body decays and it's not, but the skeletal remains, you got to think of other rodents and other mammals that may go off and drag off and eat away at those bones. So yeah, I was almost starting to get into another subject along with the dead body, but I'll try to stay on track. Yeah. But as far as a Bigfoot, yeah, I do believe they bury their dead. And the other famous question that a lot of skeptics like to ask, which here I guess I'll start getting into that other part of the subject here that I was starting to lean into there. I'm sure you've heard yourself, or maybe you've even asked yourself this question: what happened to the remains of Bigfoot? Why haven't we found why haven't we found a Bigfoot body? It's a very famous question with skeptics and non-believers. Like, well, if Bigfoot's real, why haven't we found the body yet? The number one thing I do is I come back and ask. My response to them is another question. I said, think about apex predators, such as a mountain lion. Think of bears. How many times have we found their remains of like a bear that's died of natural causes? I can't think of anybody. I can't. I've asked that question to numerous people. To find the remains of a bear or a mountain lion that's died of natural causes, where their remains. A lot of people don't know how to answer that question because you got to consider where do bears like to sleep at? They sleep in dens and caves. What about a mountain lion? They sleep in dens and caves. People don't realize this, And then let's think of something else that doesn't live in a den and a cave. Look at a deer. When a deer dies or gets killed in the woods by a natural like if it's from another predator or whatever it may be, we have a tendency to find their bones more common than anything. I've come across a lot of deer bones. I found the full skeletal of a deer that's died, where it's been attacked by something. I've actually witnessed deers being attacked by, coyotes, and actually one I believe might have been a wolf. But anyway, when you find these remains out in the woods, sometimes you won't even notice them if they've been there for a long time, because over a period of time, nature forms what I call a natural blanket. Natural leaf litter. The leaf litter, on every year when the leaves drop and fall, we're constantly getting growth. Not growth, but cover added to the ground, to the floors. The forest floor. But bones and remains of many animals over a period of time, if they're remaining, they're going to grow. The earth is going to take over. A lot of times, moss and other vegetation covers the bones, and they blend in with other broken tree limbs and stuff. But and then of course you get your rodents that are going to eat away at most of it. So these are little comparisons, the little things that people need to consider. Think about those questions. Is again, what happened to the remains of a black bear? What happened to the remains of a mountain lion? So when people could come up with those answers, then we might consider, okay, well, there's the Bigfoot body, So, these are my ways of thinking. These are my ways of understanding why we don't think. There's always a logical explanation behind something. Even if we don't have the answer right away, there's always an answer somewhere, So, yeah. Look for the remains of a apex predator, and then maybe, just maybe then, we might start getting some more answers when it comes to the remains of a Bigfoot body. One other thing real quick, too, is, like I said, I like to compare Bigfoot to our non-human primates. When you think of a primate, one thing about primates that people don't understand, compared to humans, compared to me and you and everybody else, our bone density compared to a non-human primate bones density is completely different. A primate's bones will not be preserved or preserved in soil. They are known to break down and decompose, a lot quicker than us. A lot of times, yeah, our bones will preserve in a lot of different soils, but when you got acidic soil, there's a density of the acidic that will break down a primate's bones. Unlike ours will remain. A primate's bones, if it's in the wrong soil, that's what I call it, wrong soil, will not last or preserve as long as ours. So that's another thing too. Is if if their bone density is anything like a primate, that's something to consider too. Are their bones being are their bone density if their bones being broken down and dissolved into the acidic soil? Is it, certain parts of our country in the United States, mainly, I'll use the Pacific Northwest for example. Is considered a rainforest. The soil is highly, highly acidic, and a lot of remains of bones and stuff are very unlikely to be preserved over a certain period of time. So again, if Bigfoot is anything similar to our non-human primates, which I do believe they are in certain ways, I'm not calling them equal by no means, but I believe there's a lot of comparisons. I like to believe where they have that similarity because they do share from what we experience here. They do have a lot of different similarities that I picked up on. That's just me. Then again, I know other people are starting to notice that too, but you don't have that many people that are studying and trying to research, our non-human primates. So yeah, and then another thing, talking about non-human primates and human primates. According to science, we're considered primates, but we're human primates. And then you got your chimpanzees, gorillas, bonobos, baboons. Those are all listed under the non-human primate category. And that's another thing. When people want to say Bigfoot's not primate, Bigfoot's human. Well, they don't understand the scientific terminology and the way science is laid out for, who we are, what we are. And I'm not trying to get into the evolutionary side of things because I tend to stay away from the evolutionary side of things for a couple different reasons. But but people contradict themselves because they don't understand, that we are primates according to science anyway. So, and then you get those that are like, well, I don't believe in science. I don't use science. Blah blah blah. It's like, well, science is a way of life. We live science, and science is very important in how we discover and learn things in life. So, so again, there's where people have that lack of understanding and knowledge about what science really is. But yeah, there's a lot of different little side notes and comparisons and things. If you notice, I'm very random from going from one thing to another, and so again, I do apologize if I sound like I'm rambling.
Oh no, you're doing great, man. I mean, you always write down types of a bunch of questions I always have, and I'm just sitting here marking out as you go along. Like, yep, he covered that, he covered that, he got that one too.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad I'm helping you out.
It does. When I get guests like you all that just, you ask the question and you all just cover so much within that question, I'm like, gosh, y'all make my job so much easier.
Well, I appreciate you telling me that because sometimes when I get into discussions and trying to explain things, it's bringing something else up. As I'm speaking about one thing, there's another part of my brain that's like, oh yeah, you got to tell them about this and explain this and what you think about this and blah blah blah. So all these different things are like sparks shooting all over the place. It's like, okay, and meanwhile I'm trying to stay focused on what I'm trying to explain before I jump to the next thing. So it's just my brain is always racing.
You're great, man. And the reason why I do it like this, when I first started this, I try to go through my questions as, I interviewed someone and then I'm like, wait a minute, they answered that already, or they said that. So, and then they're like, well, I already said that. And I'm like, sorry. So now I just listen, and because I've done it so much now, I pretty much got everything memorized, but I still, there's like this question. Do you know if they migrate, or do they do seasonal migration?
That's a good question. I believe they do. Um, for example, the different times of year, the seasons. We got summer, fall, winter. And then considering the cold temperatures and where when we lose the leaves and the all the leaves, all the trees lose their leaves, and then and as the temperatures get colder, you have a lot of different wildlife. They kind of slow down, they bunker down. Some of them stay in shelters. They don't go as much. So it kind of slims down on prey to the predators, if that makes any sense. So but for example, deer, when the food sources become slim, the deer, the bears, they got to move where the food is. Because black bears here in Virginia, a lot of people, when they think of bears in the wintertime, they're hibernating. Nope, that's not the case. Not here in Virginia. Maybe some of them might. Sometimes they slow down, but over my years of observations, black bears here in Virginia do not hibernate. They are on the move just as much as what other animals have to do. They do pig out because bears know the time of years as well. A lot of animals, they know, the seasons are changing, and there is a certain time of year where the bears will start pigging out and filling up their bellies, because they know their food sources become a little scarce compared to other animals. So yeah, they're going to pig out, but at the same time, they stay moving. They might slow down and bunker down a little bit here and there, but as far as wildlife, like the deer, and for those who like to believe that Bigfoot feeds off of deer, which I do believe they do. Also, there's, I believe they feed off of vegetation, which, of course, here's the wintertime, vegetation becomes slim. So at this time of year, I do believe they have to depend more on their meat, especially to put in the calories intake to survive and to keep that body fat on. Because that's what bears survive off of. That's they fill up their bellies. They live off their body fat, I do believe Bigfoot could be very similar. So therefore, when the food sources become slim, like a lot of animals, they migrate. They move to areas where the food is more abundant, where it's available. So during that time, I do believe that's what Bigfoot's got to do. If they have to eat, survive, just like we do every day of our lives, Bigfoot's got to move to that area. They got to move where the food goes. So it's like the local grocery store. If that local grocery store up the road from us shuts down, crap, we can't go there. We got to go further up in the other town. We got to go get our food somewhere. So kind of think of that concept. So I do believe they migrate for food purposes during the seasons. So yeah. So by all means, it only makes sense for me. Now and then I do believe they over period. When the food and everything, like this time of year, the leaves and all the flowers and the bushes are starting to sprout and bud. So I do believe these areas, they do move back into these areas. And because we've had a mild winter, we've had a lot of warmth earlier. I do, I have found evidence that they have been moving around and they've actually been a little active. Because over the last couple of weeks, I've been finding a couple tracks here and there. And it's telling me that they're on the move. They're in the area. And so, yes, by all means, and absolutely, they do migrate and they do move around. And, again, in my honest opinion, that, it's all about their food sources and, their survival skills, because of, it's a survival thing, So, yeah, that's my honest opinion and my belief. And I base that off of common sense. If you look at the picture, so yes, indeed.
Well, here's I've asked this of other Bigfoot researchers, so I'll ask you, and you give me your opinion. What does the Bible say anything about the possibility of a Bigfoot that you know of?
All right. I'll answer that. I'll answer this like that. I'll answer this in this way. People like to use the Book of Enoch. People like to say the Book of Enoch is a Bible. A book of the Bible that got taken away from that. In my knowledge, growing up in a biblical family and studying different theology and the history of my background, because I've been raised in a Baptist, a Reformed Baptist background living, and for those who know, it was the great Martin Luther, the free reformist, and I can mention so much more. But growing up in a biblical family and a Reformed background and studying, I do a lot of biblical reading and I do a lot of studying, and nowhere ever have I ever come across any book that's been removed from the original writings. So people, and I don't pay too much attention to this theory of the Book of Enoch, but in the Bible itself, this is one thing when this gets brought up, I tell people, I say, well, let's think about Noah and the ark. The Bible doesn't the Bible doesn't specify what a pair of creatures that were added and brought onto that ark to survive the flood. So, but the Bible does speak of, beasts that roam the earth, and this and that. And the Bible never mentions, like I said, it doesn't specify what if there was two of every kind of primate, was Bigfoot, here it is Bigfoot considered a type of primate? If he is, whatever, I'm sure he was added onto the ark, So that's the best way I'll explain it and keep it simple for now without trying to get too far into it. But think about that, yeah. Two of every animal, male and female, species of animal or whatever it was that lived on this earth was boarded onto the ark to survive that flood, to live on till, that carried on after the flood and the waters receded, and every animal spread out and multiplied from there on out. But so yeah, I do believe that they have always been around, So unfortunately, it would have been cool. I think it would have been cool if some of the dinosaurs survived, but I guess they weren't made to survive. But some have, but the ones that we consider prehistoric anyway. But yeah, like I said, without getting too far into it, that's the best way I could explain or bring anything up. But the Bible doesn't specify any beasts, like, it speaks about giants. Absolutely, it speaks about giants very much so in a number of scriptures. But as far as they were all human, I know a lot of people talk about the Nephilim, and they like to use Genesis 6 for their support, and then other people will add other stuff on to whatever. But it's kind of a touchy subject because I know how a lot of people feel about it, but
right.
It's just without the Bible in front of me to actually break down that scripture, that text, how I think people read it as in a form of a run-on sentence where they don't stop and read it properly, and how it speaks, it actually separates everything, but people read it all together, and I believe that's where a simple misinterpretation comes in from, because yeah, there was Nephilim, which was in other translations were giants. There were giants in those days, and then when people take the text, the sons of God, the sons of God is mentioned several times throughout the Old and New Testament, and the sons of God were known as Christian men and people, men and women. Those who were become followers and believers in Christ were considered the sons of God. Of course, people believe the fallen angels came down to earth and had relations with human people. Well, that's in my understanding, people are misunderstanding things, because when angels fall, they go. There were angels in heaven that fell, that were fallen angels. They went to be with their leader, Lucifer, the main leader. Lucifer was an angel himself, but people need to understand when fallen angels, when they fell from heaven, when they were kicked out of heaven, they went into people don't want to believe in hell, but they were, they were part of the army of hell. Basically, if you want to put it that way. And also, the Bible specifies angels are not given in marriage, nor are they have relations with humans, especially in heaven, because the Bible says when we go to heaven, when we die and go to heaven or whatever, we're not like we become like the angels, not given in marriage, and we don't have relationship. Angels don't have relations with humans. They're not flesh and blood beings. They're spiritual beings, and and they are, yeah, of course they are real by all means, but so I don't know. There's a lot to really get into that. I don't. It's kind of like I said. It's a kind of a touchy thing because I know I've had people come back at me. I try to not share too much about that, so
no problem.
But yeah. So
Well,
yeah.
Well, change the subject again. Are there any places here in the United States that you haven't investigated that you would like to go investigate for Bigfoot?
I'll be honest with you. I've never been out west. I would love to go out west. Yeah. I'll take Washington State. I think that would be a prime location. Washington State, even Northern California, Bluff Creek. I would love to check those areas out. But anywhere that's a remote location, where it doesn't get too much traffic, human traffic, I would love to investigate those various areas. But there's so much land here in the United States alone, and again, you live here in Virginia, and there's a lot of terrain, there's a lot of mountains, and there's a lot of what I consider remote areas where there's no residential. There's so much area out here that we don't know about, or, because I go to places out not far from here where when I go hiking in the woods, I think there's like, oh man, I must be the first one that's ever climbed this hill, I go pretty far deep, but on occasions when you're so far in, you think you're deep where no one else is. Oh, you'll find an old piece of trash on the ground. Say, what the hell? I said, I guess I wasn't the first one here. Somebody's been here some time years ago, because I come across, old beer cans. I was like, man, that's got to be from the 70s or 60s, whatever.
Yeah.
I've come across old Schlitz beer cans. I was like, that's an old can. I said, that ain't.
Yep.
That's probably got to be over. Yeah. That's got to be like over 40 years old or 50 years old or whatever, But well, and much of the national forest here in Virginia, like I said, I'm always finding something new that's fascinating, regardless of what it is, because a lot of different parts of the national forest was old farmland at one point, to the state bought up all the land and took over it, but I don't know, there is a lot of ground to cover out there, and, it's kind but yeah, if I had to pick one, it would definitely be probably around, Northern California, Washington State. Just from the documentaries and the stuff I've seen on TV, Washington State for some reason really fascinates me. So I think because watching, I don't know if you remember the Legend of Mick Dodge or whatever it's called. That guy there who lived out in the woods there, where there was one guy filming him the whole time while he was out there living his, here he is, this old, he's a veteran. He was a Marine and decided to live off the grid for a while, but seeing a lot of the terrain and the layout of the land out there, I was like, that's some like serious squashy looking area. So, and I think that's why, I don't know, just something about the woods, I don't know. It doesn't always, I can go in the area and hike and explore, and I don't care. There's times I really don't care if I find evidence. It's just the terrain and the forest itself is very fascinating, and it's been known to be overwhelming. And I kind of look at everything in a spiritual sense. Like I'm trying to think of how to better explain this. Like, for example, I'm overtaken and overwhelmed by the beauty and the scenery and the serenity of the location and the areas I venture into sometimes, because it's like me being who I am. I've been on top of a pretty high, steep ridge before, getting a nice view of the land around me, seeing the other mountain ranges and ridges, and here I'm thinking, I said, this is beautiful, and it's just it gets to me, you know what I mean? It kind of gets to me. I'm like, this is beautiful. This is God's creation. This was given for us to observe and enjoy, and there's so much out there to learn. Just being out there in nature, you'll be surprised the little things you pick up on and the things you learn. So being out in nature, it's definitely a very educational, and people don't realize it. You get out there, start spending enough time, you're going to start noticing things that you don't really understand, but a lot of things are going to start making sense to you. And I know that to the average person, that might sound kind of corny, but there's a lot of truth behind it. You start spending enough time in those woods and dedicating yourself being out there, you'll be surprised, and you'll understand why people want to be out there more. It really relieves stress too. It's breathtaking and very enjoyable. So
yeah,
yep.
No, you're right. Well, where do you think the future of Bigfoot research is heading?
That's a good question. It's really hard to speculate on that. It's I never really given that one any thought. I think it all depends. I really think that's going to depend on every individual that's involved. For one thing, we have people everybody has a different mindset and understanding or belief, and with all the different thoughts and theories and beliefs that are out there, and people having their mindsets thinking things a little too far outside the box, it's like everybody involved in the Bigfoot world, everybody has a connected rope. Everybody's pulling in a different direction because they think the answer is in their direction. Well, because people, instead of staying, let's all stay in a single file line and let's everybody head in one direction and start there. But instead, again, everybody's pulling everybody in a different direction with a different theory or a belief. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that, but creating chaos within the community. So, that's the way I look at it. It's just, I believe, because people's like, well, when I share my opinion on certain theories, like, well, you need to be a little bit more open-minded. I'm more open-minded than people realize. It's just, I'm very objective at the same time. Well, in order to get anywhere, we need to really stop and take a step back and look at the situation. And, people not, like with them having all these theories and these different, out of the realm, out of this world kind of thoughts and theories, they need to, look at something that we have evidence already of and start from there. And then, because people want to think aliens, people want to think magical portals, whatever else, but there's no evidence of that. I mean, if somebody wants to believe in that, that's fine. I'm not going to condemn them for it. But if people want to, when people present that to me or try to push that on me, that's when I have to question. I said, well, you got to give me your evidence. If I'm going to go along with that, if I'm going to believe in that, you need to share something that supports that. Because as far as I'm concerned, everything that I'm seeing points towards a physical, everything's physical. I don't see anything that's within the realm of fantasy or imagination. That's the way I put it, and that's where it upsets people. And I don't try to upset people, but that's just, sometimes I'm straightforward and blunt about things, but with my honest opinions. Wow.
Well, that's what it to me. I know I've had to deal with that a lot with me dealing with the paranormal. If I get something I can't explain, and I take it to other specialists, especially people that work with film and audio and so forth, and they can't explain it, then I'm like, there, I can't explain it, and there's my evidence. If you can explain it, great, show me, explain it. You know, you take my evidence and do what you need to explain it to me.
Right.
But I don't get that, and then I have a lot of, you know, I've ran into a lot of, you're faking it, and you're I ain't fake. I have never faked anything, and why would I waste my time faking something? I'm not trying to have a TV show or any of that bullshit like most people do. You know, I just do what I do because I enjoy it.
Well, I can honestly agree. Oh no, I honestly agree, and I could say the same thing. You know, there's no why. You know, I'm somebody that takes this very seriously, and I believe in spreading awareness and trying to find the truth. You know, and it's hard enough trying to find the truth when you have others out there that are attention seekers that will hoax things and try to put it out there as, hey, look what I got. I don't hoax. Yeah. I've been called a hoaxer numerous times. You know, and these are, I believe these are coming from the people that they want the attention. You know, I don't ask for attention. I share what I find. If I find tracks, I find tracks. You know, sometimes there's been times where I found so many tracks at one point, I never shared that information. I'll take pictures and keep it for myself because I feel I got to the point where I feel like, well, if I share this, well, people don't believe that I'm coming across these as often as I tell them I'm coming across these, because that's where people say, well, you must be hoaxing. Where do you find all these? I invite people out my area all the time, but nobody wants to come. Oh, I'll be there. I'll come out there. Bullshit. You don't show up. So I stop inviting people, you know? So, you know, I mean, there's things out there to be discovered and things to be seen. I've had my daughter out there with me. I've had my father with me. They point out stuff that I don't see, you know? You know, my daughter, well, she's, you know, she'll be 19 in June, but I've had her out there several times with me when she was a little younger. She's found stuff with me, you know. She's pointed out things I've never seen, you know. And so I've had other people out there hiking and exploring, like, Daniel, come check this out. I'm like, whoa. I almost, you know, there's things I've almost stepped on. I've actually stepped on tracks, you know, and, you know, cause I'm usually pretty observant, but I mess up. I'm not perfect. But the evidence is out there, and there's a lot of it in certain areas, you know. I mean, if I took pictures and if I showed as much as I do find, I really think people will really dismiss that, you know, because, you know, it's like, who's going to really believe all these tracks that I'm finding? I don't share half of it, you know. And then when I do share tracks, oh, did you cast it? I said, do I have to cast every track I find? Because, you know, I have my own collection. I have enough, you know. But at the same time, if you look at the collection I do have, they don't look as pretty as what these other people are finding. Because a lot of people have these perfectly shaped tracks. Like, what the hell are they finding? What kind of soil are they finding them on? I mean, are they using fake footprints and saying, look what I found? Because their tracks look pretty and smooth. The only time I had a track that looked nice and smooth, I did an experiment. I stepped out. I went in my yard one day. This is several years ago. I made a track from my own foot to use as a human comparison to the tracks that we find out in the woods. And I tell you what, that track came out perfect, you know, because of course it was out in the yard. It was easy, you know, but half the time when I make the cast out in the woods, by the time it settles up and I pull that track up, and clean it up, I said, why my tracks don't look as good as what other people come up with, you know? Are they the ones that are hoaxing? Because I sure ain't, you know. So I don't know. Sometimes it makes you wonder. People want to point fingers at you, but you know, always remember they're three pointing back at you. You know?
That's right.
So, but it is what it is. I mean, people could take it or leave it. You know, when I share what I find, that's my evidence. If you don't like it, if you're jealous, you know, kiss my ass. I'm sorry, but you know, it's, you know, I'm very, I like to believe I'm pretty observant. That's why I find what I find. That's what I'm looking for. If you learn to start looking for it, you just might find it yourself, you know?
Exactly. So, that's what I've told a lot of people. If you're looking for it the way I'm looking for it, you're going to find it too.
Exactly. And then I've had people tell me, like, I can go in the woods. Um, there's a part of the national forest here in Virginia that I know a certain other couple like to camp at. And they make their claims of every time they're out there, they see multiple Bigfoots surrounding the camp or whatever. And I've made several statements. I said, I'm out that area a lot too, but I never see them. Oh, so recently they make excuses. They go on. I haven't said anything about these people in a long time. I haven't brought their names up for nothing. But recently they've been making some statements, bringing my name up. They like bringing me up for some reason. I don't know why. But oh yeah, the reason why Daniel never sees nothing in this area is because the Squatches don't like him. What's that have anything to do with me seeing them? And if they're around like you say they are, I should see them, but I don't. You know. And the thing is, I'm not denying there's Squatches there because I know there's Squatches there. Like I said, that was one of the areas I've found tracks and experiences myself. Even though that's a whole different part of the national forest, but I haven't been down there in a while though. So there's an area, part of where I go up this way. It's enough for me to stay focused in, and that's another thing for the record. I want to make mention of this, talking about an area to stay focused in. One of the questions I get asked a lot, well, if I want to start getting involved with Bigfoot research, what should I do? I said, well, first of all, hiking and exploring and learning how to be observant is number one. Thing is, if you're going let me back up. Before you do that, you want to find an area of interest. And if you believe there's something going on there, you need to focus on that area. And you need to be observant and try to seek out evidence that supports that there's something going on there, that they're there. And you could have a couple different areas, but pick out an area and observe it as often as possible for changes. And, because I could go into an area, every day for a whole year. I'm not going to find tracks here. I might find tracks here maybe one day out of the year. It depends on what area they're working in or wherever they're moving through. But that's the thing is, I always tell people, find an area of interest and stay in that area. Focus on the area. Get to know the layout of the land. Because over the years, there's going to be changes that happen in the area. You got to consider the weather, nature. Things going to happen and change. The landscape's going to change. It's understand and get familiar with the known wildlife that are moving through, that exist to pass through or inhabit that area. It's very important. Wildlife should always be your number one focus out in the woods, to understand them and learn their patterns. Because when I tell people, when I go to different events, when I speak, or if I'm giving a local library lecture, I try to explain to people who I am and what I do. I'm a wildlife, and I always make sure they understand that I'm saying that, and I try to explain why I say that first: wildlife and Bigfoot researcher, because wildlife should be number one. Bigfoot should be your last consideration, especially when you're trying to research or study or analyze or a situation or whatever it is. Especially when it comes to tree breaks, people like to say, "Oh, there's Bigfoot's been here. There's a broken tree right there." I mean, they're neglecting weather. They're neglecting other wildlife. There's a lot of other natural causes that are known for breaking a tree. Everything. They got to point fingers at Bigfoot all the time. They give Bigfoot the credit way too often when there's others. When there is other, suspects. That's part of the process of elimination. If you could rule out all the others, then you could maybe start considering Bigfoot as a possibility. But that's where it's common sense. It's simple science. It's you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You don't have to be, a Dr. Jeff Meldrum, an anthropologist or archaeologist or whatever it may be, to understand these things. It's a lot of it is basic science. It's common sense overall. But so people need to take one step at a time and, take their time, enjoy what they're doing. I mean, till this day, I love it. I'm 40 years old. I just turned 40 years old, and I love what I do. I'm not an expert. I'm not a know-it-all. It just all boils down to common sense. And, when people attack me with their theories or their beliefs, I let it, it's whatever. I don't like arguing with people, but sometimes I get put in a corner where the people are trying to force something on me. but then I was like, if you can't prove what you're trying to force with me, shut the hell up. You know. So, but that's just me, though.
I agree. I agree 100%. But anyway, we're just about out of time. I'll ask you, what are your plans for the rest of 2020? And do you have a website or any way people can get a hold of you if they got any questions, thoughts, or comments about you and, what you do?
A couple different things. Well, depending on how things turn out for the rest of the year, I haven't made no decisions on to postpone or what yet. I feel it's still too early, but I hold the annual Virginia Bigfoot Conference every year right here in Virginia. We have an event that was scheduled for June 27th and June 28th here. I haven't made no decision on what to do yet. I'm not going to cancel it, but I will postpone it if I have to. There's too much money involved that's non-refundable and put in different positions. So I will definitely make sure it happens. I just hope all this crap blows over with the COVID-19 BS. Now, that's an event I host. Like I said, it was a 2-day event, and we have a lot to look forward to with that. A lot of vendors, some great guest speakers. Now, later on in the year, I am scheduled to speak at a couple of events. There's been a few events one I was supposed to attend this month that got canceled or postponed till August. But I have other events. I have the Western North Carolina Bigfoot Festival that's happening in September, I believe. I got to double check my schedule, but that's happening in September in Marion, North Carolina. I will be there speaking. And down in Westminster, South Carolina, this will be their second annual Bigfoot Festival, again in Westminster, South Carolina, right on Main Street, October 24th. I will be returning there for a second year in a row to speak again. I tell you what, last October when I was there, it was a huge event, massive crowds of people filling up the street where the festival took place. A lot of vendors, great people. I love that event because by surprise, I went down there and I had people that recognized me that I didn't know who they were. Like, Daniel? I was like, hey, it was cool. I had a lot of fun meeting people that knew me. And I was like, I didn't realize that. It was very encouraging and exciting, So, yeah, I'll be there again in October. Lord willing, everything works out for the rest of the year. I know several other events had to cancel or postpone, which that kind of sucks because, everybody has their annual schedules that they do these events. So I hope the rest of the year works out for everybody, especially with, like I said, my event. I hope that works out. Then as far as contacting me, I got some blogs and some information if you want to check out. I have a WordPress site. If you go to E.C.B.R.O.wordpress.com and browse through, I have different pages and blogs on there of various sorts and with some information. I haven't been on there in a while, but there's a lot of information you can still check out and read up on. Some of it's educational, some of it's my opinion on things, and there's other posts from other stories. If you want to contact me for whatever reason, you can email me at ecbro98@gmail.com. Right on Facebook, I have our main Facebook group, the E.C.B.R.O. I have several different pages of the E.C.B.R.O. and the E.C.B.R.O. Discovery Project. And then just my regular personal page, timeline. You can check that out. So, and then a lot of people like to check out my YouTube channel. Everybody's always looking for a good video. There's documentaries I have on there. Bigfoot Zone. It's called Bigfoot Zone. E.C.B.R.O. So, yeah, check that out. So, and that's pretty much about it.
Well, Daniel, I appreciate you so much coming on the show, man, and being so patient with me and finally getting you on here. And I hope everybody stays. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying no. It was actually a pleasure. I'm glad we finally got it worked out. I know it just what's worked out even better tonight because I'm glad you sent me a reminder earlier today because today I was at work and it was a slow day and I was bored. I was like, all right, I got a message on my phone. So, yeah, so I mean, it worked out great. And then plus being up this late, normally I wouldn't do something so late on a weekday, but I actually had a nap when I came home from work today, so it works out. Plus, I don't have to go to work tomorrow because our head company sent out an email to our office, so like, hey, we're giving everybody a day off to relax and enjoy the the weekend, and since we all been working through this COVID crap, because we're all where I work, we're all considered essential workers, being in the construction field and all. And I deliver the material, so I drive all week long anyway. So, but yeah, it worked out great. That hey, once I heard that we were off tomorrow, I said, all right. I said I'll be able to relax and enjoy my the show I'm going to be on tonight, so I don't have to stress about waking up early in the morning.
Well, I'm glad. I'm glad that all worked out because, like I said, I've been wanting to speak to you, and I know we had a couple of times it didn't work out too well because of your work schedule, or I couldn't get this damn thing to work properly. But it all worked out
that's
good.
All right. Yeah, I know. I recall you had emergency or a death or illness in the family not long ago as well.
Yeah, I had actually two people pass away in my family within 2 weeks, a week of each other. I was like, good God.
Oh, man. That's got to be rough.
Yeah, especially my aunt that passed away. She's the one passed away first. And it was before this virus and stuff hit so bad around here. But we had rain, and she's back here on the hill behind my house where the cemetery is. And they had put her on ice for 17 days before they was able to bury her.
Wow.
Because it was so muddy. I'd never known them to keep somebody on ice that long, but I guess they did.
Yeah. That's weird. Yeah, I didn't know that either. Huh. So, Rodney, can I ask you a quick question before we get off here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Do you camp at all? Do you do any camping?
Oh yeah, I haven't camped in a while, but I do camp. I've got my own tents, and sometimes back when I was younger, I just go up and make my own little campsite and stuff. I was bad about doing that. Where you was talking about going all over the mountains and everything. I used to do that. And I'd find like old headstones that didn't have no writing or nothing on it. And that always break my heart. I'd put some flyers down for them if there's any nearby, or just sit and talk. I guess that's the reason why I've got that part of the paranormal, because I've seen things in the woods I couldn't explain, and I'd go talk to Dad about it. And Dad's like, "Don't be telling people that, boy. They think you're crazy."
Right? Yeah. That's interesting. Now, I was just asking because one thing I would have mentioned while we were live is that whatchamacallit, there's at the end of May, I do have a week long. Well, I have a whole week off that I will be camping, and so anyone that would be interested, I'll be more than glad to let them come out and camp. Because where I plan on camping, I do exploring during the day, but at nighttime I like to hang around and sit at the camp. I do some walking around at night, but the particular campsite I camp at, this is exactly right across from where the encounter and the other experiences has happened. Over the years, sitting there hanging out at camp there at that site, you'll hear a lot of vocalizations. You'll hear movement. You'll hear wood knocks like really close to you. So I try to invite people. Like, I let people know about it, but like I said, I don't really invite people as much as I used to because, like I said, everybody that says they're coming out never comes out. Cause if they're gonna come out, you gotta plan a meetup location because if they don't know the area, they won't find it or they'll get lost because there's no phone reception out there. So I have to try to plan on meeting people outside of the area where it'll show up on their GPS and say, all right, let's follow me from here, So, but I don't know.
Well,
Yeah,
I would really like to, but I'm going to tell you that I'm not going to be able to because I'm one of those people. However everybody thinks about this virus, I'm one of those that's really susceptible of if I get it, it's going to kill me because my doctor,
okay.
because I got diabetes real bad, and my doctor last month when I went and seen him, I mean, he got up in my face and he's never done this, and he said, Rodney, I'm going to be honest with you, big guy. I said, what? He said, this virus is serious. You get it, you're going to die, big guy. I'm telling you as plain as I can tell you. Keep your ass at home. I said, yes, sir. So I went home, and I've been in my home. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I go out in my yard and fool around, but I stay home so this passes by.
Yeah, having diabetes.
I don't need to die yet. I got grandbabies I need to watch grow up.
Oh, yeah. I know. I got my first grandchild coming in early June, so that should be interesting.
Oh, you're one to pop off. I was 42 years old. 42 when I had my first one.
Oh, okay. That's very cool.
Oh, yeah. When you have that first, they wrap you around their finger. I know my first one, she's my little half pint. She just turned 9 years old Sunday.
Yeah.
And she's Papa's little girl, but whew.
I know. There's times I wish I could turn back time and make my daughter a little baby again or a little girl again. You know, I mean, even up till even as a teenager, she's always been, she's always been a daddy's girl. You know, we have a lot of simple moments, because every Friday night, even something simple as just sitting there, going out getting some snacks or going out to eat, pick up some snacks, come home, watch movies, on Friday nights. That was always our thing, because we had a couple different restaurants we have as our favorites, but but ever since she's gotten pregnant and everything, is a lot of it has changed, but she's in a situation right now she needs to act smart, get smart real soon,
My girls were the smart ones. My boys not too smart, but my girls are 28 and 27, and neither one of them has been married or had a baby. Thank goodness.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess they are being smart about things. Huh?
Yeah, now my boys, now my oldest boy, he's got 2 children, and my youngest son, he's got let me see, 1, 2, 3 kids.
Oh, okay.
I told that youngest boy of mine, he gonna have to get cut.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm one of 4 siblings. I got my younger brother. He's 38. He don't have no kids. I got 2. I had 2. My oldest one, I've had custody of her since she was 3 months old, and then I have a 12-year-old from my second wife, and then my sister Melanie, she's got 4 kids, and Melissa's got 2, and she's got 2 grandkids. So yeah, Melissa, she'll be 50 this year. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a lot of girls that run in our family, and just very few boys. Only boys in my immediate family are just me and my brother, and then my sister Melanie. Out of her 4, she's got her 13, 14-year-old son. So, so yeah.
That's a 50-50 shot on both sides of my family. I mean, everybody. It don't matter. They shake it up in the back. There you go. It's a boy. Shake it up again.
Yeah.
It's a girl.
Yeah, I told my daughter, I said, when that boy, because her baby she's going to have is a boy, I said, I'll probably be keeping him more than you will, because I plan on teaching him how to learn about the woods and everything else. He's going to be my little squatcher buddy one day.
Well, that's like my granddaughter. She'll sit here with me when I'm going through pictures or videos or listen to audio, and she'll be like, Papa, what are you doing? And I tell her, can I listen? And especially if I get an EVP or something here. Listen, tell me what you hear. And she's like, her mouth will drop open real big and her eyes get real big. She's like, I heard somebody whispering, Papa, but I couldn't understand what they say. I'm like, hey,
you got a future investigator on your hands there.
Oh, yeah. She loves it. Bigfoot, whether it be Bigfoot or UFOs. She's like me. I love it all. I love it. Crypto.
Yeah.
Anything that not been explained or the unknown, I love. I love it, and she's getting into it.
And do you watch a lot of Bigfoot movies by any chance?
I've watched the ones back when I was a kid. I can't remember the names of them. I can't remember if one of them was Bigfoot, but it was like in the 70s, late 70s. It was cool.
Oh, okay.
I haven't watched it since.
Was it Legend of was one of them a Legend of Boggy Creek by any chance?
Yeah, I think so. Yep, I think so.
You know, I still have not seen that movie. I know it's been around forever, but I know, yeah, I have. There's a list of movies I need to get online and just order because there's some I've seen on TV before, but there's one. It's a fictional movie, but to watch this particular movie is called Big Legend, and it really gets you thinking. You just, it's actually a good movie, because I'm not into all these Bigfoot movies that portray Bigfoot as a gory killer.
Right.
Things that I like a thriller movie. I don't like the gory stuff because it's like people love that kind of stuff. I was like, in my honest opinion, it's not portraying what Bigfoot is on overall. Bigfoot's not reported to be a gory, serial killer like he appears to be in some of these modern movies they have out there. But yeah, there's certain movies like if you ever get a chance, check that out. I think you might like that.
Okay.
Big Legend, and there's another one I still have yet to see. I hear a lot of good things about it, and it's called Something in the Woods. I think it's called, or I think that's what it's called. It's kind of like about this woman and her kids living out in the woods in a cabin. I think her husband and the kids, the mother oversees something in the background. And she, I only seen it, like I said, it was part of the preview I seen of it, but there's a Bigfoot that starts coming around their cabin and it starts frightening frightening the family. But like I said, I don't know much about it, but it looks like it's a good movie. So,
cool.
So yeah, there's a few different ones out there. I've had my share of watching different sci-fi Bigfoot movies, which some of them are okay, but so yeah.
See,
I need to
watched that Leonard Nimoy show back in the 70s where he talked about so many different things, especially Bigfoot and the paranormal and Egypt and ancient civilizations, and In Search of. That's the name of it.
Oh, okay.
I still watch it sometimes at night. I'll be sitting here bored, not really doing anything, and I'll just look it up and start watching something back in 1972.
Oh, nice. I'll tell you what, if you're into that kind of thing, I'm not sure if you know him or not. I follow him on Facebook. Brian Forrester. Brian Forrester.
Oh, yeah.
He's an archaeologist, a mathematician, and he's in study of the Paracas skulls, and then he goes to Peru and Egypt and all that stuff. Very fascinating individual. So yeah, he has some pretty good stuff.
I've had him on my show before.
Oh,
Great
okay.
guy.
Awesome. Yeah, I've had him on a podcast a long time ago. So yeah.
Yep. He was in Peru. I was sitting up here freezing my ass off, and he's like, I'm in Peru. And I'm like, well, how's the weather in there? He's like 82 degrees. And I'm like, yeah. It's like 12 here. Congratulations.
Nice. Wow. Now that's right. Yeah. You said you're from Tazewell, Virginia, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm originally from Buchanan County, which is the next county over. But yeah, I live in Tazewell. Tazewell has a lot of mountainous farm area. Like I said, it's the Jefferson National Park. Forest is part of it. Let me see what else we got here.
I can't think of it right offhand. How far are you from Chatham, Virginia? That's probably not too far, is it?
From where?
Chatham, Virginia, which is part of Pittsylvania. It's called Pittsylvania County or Pittsburgh or something.
Oh, I'm on the other end of Virginia. I'm down there next to Tennessee, West Virginia, and North Carolina.
Oh, okay. Okay. I'm thinking about. All right. I might be thinking about a whole different area. I'm thinking Tazewell, Virginia, was more east of that area. So, okay.
right there where you was talking about Wistful.
Yeah.
From like 2 counties over, you got Wistful, then you got Bland, and then you got Tazewell, and then Buchanan County. Like I said, we're right down there in that little, the tip of the state that nobody gives a shit about. Not part of the state.
Yeah, there's been reports. I know Tracy had shared that because I shared a report to him, and he told me after I shared a report to him that that I got from Bland County. He said, yeah, there's been a couple sightings he was investigating down there around that area. So, yeah, there's a lot of activity down there. That's for sure.
Oh yeah.
The last time I've been down that way, I had a delivery all the way down in Abington, Virginia, one time.
Yeah.
And that's a good 3-hour trip one way from my shop where I work. So, yeah, that was. I like going down that way. It's a nice drive all the way down there. So, but right there in Abington. But
yeah, you pass where I live to go to Abington, unless you went to interstate. Now, if you went to interstate down there. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I was on 81 all the way down. Yeah. So.
Well, you bypassed me.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Huh.
Yep.
Yeah, I tell you.
I'm sorry.
This has been very. Oh no, I was just gonna say this has been a very enjoyable discussion and conversation as well. Yeah, I really enjoy these. So.
Oh, I do too. Last week I had a great show. This week I had a great show. I don't know what's going on. That's scary when I had 2 shows going this good. Because normally sometimes, something either happens, whether it's something technical or, maybe I say something piss them off. I pissed off one guy, and this one guy wrote like 3 books about Salem and the witches of Salem. So I was asking him questions about the Salem witchcraft and witches and stuff. Well, within 45 minutes, he's like, have you read any of my books? I'm like, no. I said, I don't have time to read everybody's books.
Right, it's not an obligation.
Yeah, he's like, well, you have no idea who I am. I said, I've looked you up. I've listened to other shows that you've done, a couple of them, and you talked about the witches of Salem and the buildings and stuff. Well, he's like, well, when are we going to talk about the buildings? I said, well, I was actually kind of building my way up to that.
Right.
And he's like, we don't know what you're talking about. He's like, just, screw this. I'm done, and hung up. And I'm sitting here looking. I'm like, what, did he just hang up on me? Hello? And he did. He hung up on me. And then deleted me and blocked me on Facebook. And I was like, well, I couldn't even tell him to get this off.
Oh, my goodness.
But, I don't know why he got mad at me. I mean, we were talking about what he done or does. And,
yeah.
I mean, talk about building a truck engine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like, if I haven't had a guest on my podcast in a while because I have regular panel members. We just get into talking and having open discussions on certain things, and which. Our discussions are very random as well. We'll get into talking about one thing, everybody talk and share their opinion, and then we'll get into something else, and we might come back to something else. And that's how I am when I talk most of the time. But yeah, if I have a guest on, I'll try to get enough information about them, and I'll explain to them if they agree to come on. I'll explain to them. I said, our panel is very open. We'll ask you questions. Even if it's something that's you might have out there, we'll ask you about it and get you to speak about it, and so yeah, I've had some interesting characters on there. I've had people beg me to come on my podcast, on YouTube, and I was like, and some of the people I knew what I was getting into, and I'll let my other panel members know. I say, hey, look, we got this so and so. I agreed to let them come on. Just be patient with them and blah, blah, blah. And I said, I don't know what's going to come out of his mouth, but just be patient. So, but then, people, my panel members have been, they do pretty good about it. They'll ask questions and they'll explain why they're asking those certain questions. Because sometimes we ask certain things because we have our way about trying to find a way to understand them and where they're coming from, We've had people share some pretty bizarre claims, but we're not going to dismiss those claims. I mean, because we weren't there. If they claim they saw this and experienced this, you know, we're not going to dismiss it. I mean, it's one thing. I'm not going to come out and say, well, I don't believe you, or I'll keep that to myself if I don't believe them. But after we go off air and I'm talking to my panel members off air, we're like, we'll discuss a little bit about it. Like, yeah, I wasn't really buying that. Stuff like that. But
yeah, I've had those moments, but not many. It's been a couple that I'm just like, oh God,
yeah,
that's bullshit. You just, and to me, and I'm one of these kind of people. I'm pretty out there, and I never want to tell a guest, you're full of shit. But
right.
there was one guest that I actually had to. He just kept on. I'm like, you know what? That's bullshit. And he's like, I can prove it. I will prove it. You can prove it. I will retract that bullshit statement.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
And that was normally one of them good funny ones when people start piling up calling. I got a question for him, Rod. No.
I shared the link around before we went live, and I had a buddy of mine. He lives in West Virginia. He's like, hold on, let me read what he said earlier. He made it publicly. He's like, I'm not smart enough to know how to get on that network. I said, click the link. He said, I tried, but couldn't get it on, even though I tapped the link. It didn't work on my phone. So I guess a lot of people I used to have a Blog Talk radio show, which I haven't used in a long time. And so a lot of people are not familiar how to use it. I was like, because I used to have, mine's still on there. You can still look up my old broadcast, radio shows, but I was paying. I think I was using I was using an upgrade platform, which I forgot how much it was costing me a month or a year. I think it was like $40 a month or something like that. Yeah.
Huh.
So you could have up to a couple of hours or so many hours per episode. I can't remember. It's been, like I said, it's been a long time, but so
yeah.
But that's why I'm glad I was able to do the direct connect call, like, going through the email link and talk. Because I like to be hands free. Because I've been on somewhere, I don't like holding the phone up to my ear. But now if I have to do it through a phone, I got an earpiece now, so I could be hands free that way. Especially, it's convenient because I'm on the road driving, each day, and if I get phone calls, it's easy for me to just push the button on my ear and I can talk, So.
Right.
But yeah. So.
Well, I'm gonna jump off here. I'm gonna go get me something to drink and get ready for bed myself. I've tried to take a nap all day, and everybody comes by and wakes me up. I'm like,
my!
Damn. I was trying to get me a nap in before you, and I'm like, I told my daughter before I came in here, I said, oh God, I hope I'm not grouchy. I said, because I don't want to make nobody mad.
Oh no, you're fine. Yeah, you're a great host, by the way. I really enjoyed being on here. So.
Oh well, thank you. Now you're making me blush, man. Oh man.
Well, I'll tell you what. If you ever want any other recommendations, I could recommend a few other people for guests on here. Starting off, if you want to ever get with Tracy Arnold, he would be a good one to talk with. He's got some great stuff, and of course, with everything going on in his company he was working for, he's out of work right now, so he's got time on his hands.
Well, I mean, I hate that he's not working, but I'll hook him up. I'll definitely give him a holler.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because like I said, we've done some field work together. We had that experience together, and he's had a couple sightings he could tell you about, and very interesting. Now, one of them was very close. Well, actually, both of them were technically, but yeah, he does this one thing that's very interesting. He puts a live camera phone out in the woods connected to a battery source that keeps it charged, and he'll leave it out there all night long. And he's got people that will sit there on his YouTube channel, watch it live around the clock. And
wow.
Yeah, he's had some pretty interesting things on there. You can hear things. And one he shared with me early in the week, or I think it was early this week or over the weekend. He said, check this out. He shared a small clip of and it was dark enough, but where you could still make out the silhouette of the trees out in front of him. And what he showed me appeared to be what, to me, it looked like something had stepped in front and like slightly paused and then continued walking. And now, as far as I know, he doesn't show people, he doesn't tell people where he's putting those at. And I think he really had something on there. It was interesting.
Wow.
So he's he's part of, does a lot of stuff right there in the Jefferson National Forest, not far from his home. So yeah, he's got some good stuff going on there. So yeah.
Well, I'll give him a holler and see if I can get him to come on the show.
Okay, yeah. Like I said, his name's Tracy Arnold. He's on my friends list. He's pretty easy to find. His profile picture, I think, is just him and his him and his wife. I think it's in the profile picture. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, he's a real good guy. Very, very wise and knowledgeable. You know, he's just a few years older than me, but he's got a lot of knowledge under his belt. So
okay,
well, absolutely.
That sounds great.
All right. Well, thank you very much again, and you have a good night.
Hey, you have a great night, and you have a great weekend. Enjoy yourself, and try not to get sick.
Oh, definitely. All right. Have a good one.
Hey, you too. Thanks a lot.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Wow. I want to thank Daniel Benoit for coming on the show. Man, that was a great show. You got to love it when you have shows like that. That's 2 in a row. Man, I'm getting lucky. I have nothing but mad respect for him and the work he's doing. Welcome him back anytime. He's, shit. Yeah, like I said, it was a great show. Our guest for next week is... for next Thursday, April 16th, will be, who is it? Linda Goffrey. Sorry. So that's it. Everybody be safe, be careful, and don't get stupid this weekend. Love you, bye. That's it for us tonight. I want to thank everyone that took the time to listen in. I'd like to give a big shout out to the Vibe Radio Network and to Ryan for putting up with us. Also to all the first responders and our men and women in the armed services, thank you for your service and the sacrifices that you and your families make every day to keep our great nation safe. Tune in next week to another exciting show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Everyone can go to our Facebook page Within the Chaos, and don't forget to like our page to see upcoming guests along with past shows, postings, or you can also go to my website at www.blackdiamondps.org or blogtalkradio.com/Vibe Radio Network. Also, we have a YouTube channel, so go to YouTube, look up Within the Chaos for past shows. Thanks again. Until next week, everyone have a safe weekend and have a good night. And love you all. Be careful out there.
I'm sorry. But I don't want to be an emperor. That's not my business. I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that. We want to live by each other's happiness, not by each other's misery. We don't want to hate and despise one another. In this world, there's room for everyone, and the good earth is rich and can provide for everyone. The way of life can be free and beautiful, but we have lost the way. Greed has poisoned men's souls, has barricaded the world with hate, has goose-stepped us into misery and bloodshed. We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. Our knowledge has made us cynical, our cleverness hard and unkind. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity. More than cleverness, we need kindness and gentleness. Without these qualities, life will be violent, and all will be lost. The aeroplane and the radio have brought us closer together. The very nature of these inventions cries out for the goodness in men, cries out for universal brotherhood, for the unity of us all. Even now, my voice is reaching millions throughout the world, millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people. To those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Soldiers, don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men, machine men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines, you are not cattle, you are men. You have the love of humanity in your hearts. You don't hate, only the unloved hate, the unloved and the unnatural. Soldiers, don't fight for slavery, fight for liberty. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke it is written, the kingdom of God is within man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you. You, the people, have the power to create machines, the power to create happiness. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Then in the name of democracy, let us use that power. Let us all unite. Let us fight for a new world, a decent world, that will give men a chance to work, that will give youth a future and old age a security. By the promise of these things, brutes have risen to power, but they lie. They do not fulfill that promise. They never will. Dictators free themselves, but they enslave the people. Now let us fight to fulfill that promise. Let us fight to free the world, to do away with national barriers, to do away with greed, with hate and intolerance. Let us fight for a world of reason, a world where science and progress will lead to all men's happiness. Soldiers, in the name of democracy, let us all unite!